Hi, hello, my name is Gomer Joseph. I hope we've all been having a great day so far. Welcome back to another True Crime Tuesdays video. If you are new, I welcome you. Before I discuss today's case, I just want to let it known that it's pretty much the 1 year anniversary since the beginning of my Christian suspense book series, Never As It Seems. And in order to actually celebrate this anniversary, I have actually put it up for free on Amazon just for a limited time. So I'll go ahead and leave the link, and y'all get that book while it's free, while y'all have the time. So today I'll be discussing the Kinkel family slash Thurston High School murders. This is part of my Too Young to Murder miniseries. As I was researching this case, I found it to be absolutely insane and disturbing. Like, it completely messed me up. Though this isn't the first time I've discussed a minor who has killed, this is the first time I've discussed a school shooting. Obviously, school shootings are very tragic and it's very difficult to hear and even talk about them. Students and staff are supposed to be safe at school, and it's such a shame to hear of people dying in a place where they're supposed to be safety. The thing about this case is that this was before Columbine. What I've noticed is that whenever we hear about school shootings now, most people always look back to Columbine, but don't seem to mention that they tragically started before that tragedy. Not that it's something I want to think about, but we can't forget that people's lives were affected before Columbine, if that makes any sense. Now, I encourage you all to do your own research with this case and not just look at my video. Here we go. Okay, and just to let y'all know, I really hate talking about the killer more than the victims, but unfortunately with this case, I found out more information about the killer than the victims. But, especially in a case like this one, it is frustrating, but it does make you understand the situation better. So I will be talking about Kip Kinkel. Now, he did go by Kip. He was born in 1982 in Eugene, Oregon, to parents Bill and Faith Kinkel. Now, he did have an older sister named Kristen. In 1986, the family moved to Spain, but Kip had a difficult year since his teacher wasn't speaking any English to him, so they were able to move back to Oregon a year later. Here's the thing about the Kinkels. Now, these parents were known to be excellent Spanish high school teachers, and expected the best from their kids. While Kristen met her parents' expectations, Kip wouldn't, which seems pretty unhealthy to me, to have this comparison to an accomplished sibling while you have your own struggles. In first grade, Kip was held back more because of his lack of emotional and physical development, but also struggled with dyslexia and even ADD. Kip's parents were also worried about his interest in violent TV programs, which led them to cut their cable services. Other than issues with school, with reading, Kip was pretty good with math and science, even had an interest in sports, and he was pretty good at it. Ever since he was young, Kip did have this huge interest in guns. Now, as for Kip's parents, Bill and Faith, his parents didn't really like anything to do with guns and violence, but reluctantly agreed to get him his first one on his 12th birthday and would give him, guns later on in life. Personally, I'm pro 2A. I don't really like the idea of shooting for sport, but I do believe in the right to protect yourself. But when it comes to kids who are troubled, like Kip was, I don't believe guns should be given to those type of kids, because in situations like these, guns aren't really going to help them become a better person. In a situation like these, Jesus is the answer, okay, guys? Now, back to sports. Now, Kip's love of sports made him competitive, which was a trait from his father, but another trait was an uncontrollable temper. Because of these genetic traits, there would be tension. Kristen, Kip's older sister, would always try her best to make peace, almost like the glue of the family, which is a huge responsibility for a teenager to bear between her parents and her brother. But it wasn't like she could stay at home forever. After leaving home for college, there was no one in the house to keep the family together. In a way, I guess, to decrease this tension in the household and, even defend himself from some kids at school, Kip was enrolled in a karate class, which he enjoyed. And like I mentioned before, he was pretty good at sports and was pretty successful in karate. Despite getting involved with such positive extracurricular activities, Kip did surround himself with bad influences at school, like smokers and boys who spent time at detention centers, but bad enough to lead Kip to shoplifting at malls and even ordered bomb building books. When he was caught, this obviously worried his parents, being the type of parents that they were. It worried them to see Kip around the crowd that he was a part of. Now, they took him out of school and homeschooled him for a year. Later on, Kip went on a snowboarding trip with a friend and that boy's family, but got in trouble with the law after throwing a 12-inch rock on top of a car from some overpass. From how once again, his parents just being strict and having this type of reputation, they were obviously absolutely furious, but had no idea what to do with their son. Faith wanted to send Kip to a psychiatrist, but Bill objected. His reasoning was money issues, but I'm pretty sure, there are friends and families who pretty much thought that Bill didn't want their son to go to a psychiatrist because of this reputation that they had, but Bill eventually agreed to Kip seeing a psychiatrist. Now, the psychiatrist, oh my word, the psychiatrist listed worries about Kip's trouble making history, the interest in knives and guns, mentioned how his mother saw him as a good kid who just got in trouble, while his father saw him as a bad kid overall. Kip also mentioned that blowing up these handmade bombs made him feel better as a way of releasing anger, and was eventually diagnosed with major depression. Like I mentioned before, Kip did have a temper. He would even get into fights with other students, and of course, after getting into these fights, the school would suspend him. Kip also wasn't known as being the best student. He was known as being like some sort of class clown, and though that's not really really serious to me, since I do have a good sense of humor, teachers did find this behavior to be a distraction in the classroom. Now, once Kip started high school at Thurston, he played football, yet still felt lonely. Getting into this complicated relationship with some girl made his loneliness even worse. It was almost like she was kind of tugging on him, saying, "Oh, I want you, but it's not good for us to be together," that type of stuff. And in the late 90s, before Columbine, there was a small string of school shootings across the United States. Kip was, for some reason, fascinated by them, but always looked down upon the shooters, who seemed to have failed in his eyes by allowing themselves to get arrested instead of killing themselves afterwards. On May 20th, 1998, 16-year-old Kip bought a fully loaded handgun, which was bought illegally, to school, and he kept this gun inside of his locker. But he was caught, arrested, then expelled. After being picked up from the police station by his dad and getting back home, the unspeakable and the unthinkable occurred. Armed with a rifle, Kip shot his father in the back of his head. Now, Faith was out of the house, unaware of Kip's arrest and the murder of her own husband by the hands of their own son. Later that night, Faith arrived home and Kip told his mother, "I love you," then shot and killed her with that same rifle even more times than his father. These were his parents, and his mother's death seemed like a passion kill. And if you love your mother, obviously you're not going to kill her. But now, a friend of Kip's mentioned that since Kinkel was closer to his mom, he couldn't bear to tell her how he killed his father, so tried to spare his mother Faith of that. Now, write in the comment section what you think about that, because I have no words for that. After killing his parents that night, Kinkel played the soundtrack of the 1996 version of Romeo and Juliet, which was actually one of his favorites. Afterward, he would write a letter stating how he killed his parents, wished he were dead, wished he was aborted, and how he couldn't stand these voices inside of his head. The next day, May 21st, 1998, Kinkel was dressed to head to school, the one that he was expelled from. Wore a trench coat to hide that he was carrying a rifle, and drove to his school in his parents' car. Now, mind you, this is the first time he ever drove a car. In the hallways, bumping into a couple of friends, he told them to leave the school because something bad would happen. Now, again, this is the late 90s. School shootings weren't really as frequent as they unfortunately now are, so these friends were confused as to what Kinkel was implying. Soon after this encounter, Kinkel started shooting and chaos would ensue, killing 16-year-old Ben Walker and 17-year-old Michael Nicholson. And, he would shoot and wound 25 other students. After running out of ammunition, a group of students tackled him to the ground, which is an act I highly commend. Like, they were brave enough and wanted to make sure this madness came to an end quickly. While being held on the ground, Kinkel screamed, "Just kill me." Since we're on the topic of this tragic event, I do want to go ahead and speak about what I found out about these two victims. Now, as for Ben Walker, people have described him as easygoing, always happy, loved Ace Ventura, loved Final Fantasy, and had dreams of being an entrepreneur. Now, as for Michael Nicholson, unlike many high schoolers, he was engaged. He loved working on computers, worked as a teacher's aide in the computer labs, and was supposed to start basic training for the National Guard. And it's such a shame that these two actually had a bright future, but yet this crazy, unexpected event took that future away from them. As Kip was being arrested, the madness did not end there. He pulled a knife and began to attack a cop, screaming once again, "Just kill me." Now, after all this happened, police arrived to the Kinkel home. The Romeo and Juliet soundtrack was still playing, which is actually really creepy. They found weapons and found Bill and Faith's bodies inside. More heartbreak would continue as Kristen, Kip's older sister, was informed about all that had happened, and obviously she was devastated. Like, my heart really goes out to her, as to basically lose your family in one day the way that she lost them. That's like completely unimaginable. Like, I can't comprehend how that must have felt that day. And pretty much, Kinkel was still interviewed by police, and he stated that he had no other choice but to do all that he did, and stated how he hated the voices inside of his head. Of course, he was tried for these crimes, pretty much dropped his insanity claim, and pled guilty to all of the charges, and was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole, which is something I agree as the right call. Normal 16-year-olds don't shoot the people who raised them and go start shooting kids at their school. This tragedy occurred over 20 years ago. I'm sure this has to have bothered Kristen to this day. As for Ben and Michael's families, I'm absolutely positive that they've never stopped thinking about them, and my prayers go out to their families. For those injured, being shot at isn't something that you forget, and my prayers are with them as well. Once again, I do believe that Kinkel is exactly where he needs to be. He not only shot and killed his parents and robbed his sister of their parents, but he also robbed parents of their children. Now, even though I believe he should still serve life in prison, the only road to redemption is repenting of his sins and putting his faith and trust in Jesus Christ alone. I thank you all for taking the time in your day to watch this video. If you did like this video, please hit the like button. If you have any thoughts about this case, please leave your thoughts in the comments section. If you'd like to see more videos from me, please hit the subscribe button and click the bell to be notified about the next video. If there's a certain true crime case that you'd like me to cover, let me know. I'll see y'all for next True Crime Tuesdays. I'll talk to y'all later.